So imagine for a second that you are navigating to the official U.S. Department of War website.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. You type in the .gov URL, and you are greeted by this digital fortress that you totally expect.
Like the official seal, the severe color palette, that kind of vibe?
Exactly. It's got the drop-down menus for mundane logistical behemoths,
Yeah.
things like procurement or value of service.
Right, global combatant commands, press advisories, all the heavy military stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It is this massive wall of standard dry administrative infrastructure
Yeah.
that's basically projecting global military dominance.
As it usually does.
But then as you're scanning the top navigation bar, right between the links for resources and about, there's just this new solitary link.
And it really stands out.
Oh, entirely. And the text of that link simply says UFO.
Wow. I mean, the visual whiplash of that really cannot be overstated.
Right.
You are looking at the towering edifice of national defense, the machinery responsible for deterring war and managing the world's most lethal capabilities.
Yeah.
And right there in the basic site navigation, treated with the exact same administrative weight as the Help Center or the Strategic Management Plan, is an official portal dedicated to the search for unknown craft in our skies.
It is wild. So today, we're taking a deep dive into opening up the U.S. government's new Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP encounters.
Better known by its acronym, PURSU.
PURSU, exactly. This system was launched by the Department of War, and it really represents an absolute seismic shift in how the government interacts with the public regarding one of the most enduring mysteries of our time.
Yeah, it's an information portal, it's an archive, and it's a public invitation all rolled into one.
Right. And the sheer volume of what is being proposed here is just staggering. I mean, we are looking at the systematic declassification and release of tens of millions of hidden records.
But before we get too deep into the weeds, I think the magnitude of the text we are examining today requires us to establish a very specific analytical framework.
Yes, absolutely. We need to set some strict parameters for you, the listener, as we dive into this material today.
Because we are dealing with direct quotes, policy directives, and official statements from some highly polarized political figures.
Right, specifically President Donald J. Trump and United States Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
Exactly. So we have to be clear about what we are doing here.
Yeah, let me make this crystal clear. This deep dive involves analyzing those specific directives and statements to understand the mechanics of this PURSU operation. We are not taking any political sides here.
Right, no endorsements.
None at all. We are not endorsing these viewpoints, nor are we litigating the broader geopolitical landscape. Our sole mission today is to impartially deconstruct the official government text that has been provided to us.
We just want to understand the policies, right?
Yes, the policies, the underlying logic, and the practical implications of this unprecedented data release. We treat the text as our true north.
Exactly. The goal is to dissect the machinery. We really need to uncover the foundational reasons driving this initiative.
Like, why are these UAP files finally being released to the public, and why is that process so important?
Right, and examine how the federal bureaucracy is physically attempting to execute a release of this massive scale.
And ultimately, we have to address the core question that is really driving the public's fascination here.
Oh, the big one.
The huge one. Does the material housed in this new PURSU system actually prove that these phenomena came from another planet?
Well, to understand the machinery, we really have to look at the spark that ignited it,
Right.
Because a sprawling multi-agency declassification system does not just spontaneously generate from within the bureaucracy.
No, the bureaucracy hates moving that fast.
Exactly. It requires a catalyst. And that catalyst was a direct order from the Commander-in-Chief on February 19th, 2026.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's pull apart the exact text of the directive posted by Donald J. Trump on Truth Social.
Let's hear it.
Okay. The directive reads, quote, "Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs."
It's a very specific list.
Right. And it goes on to say, quote, "and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America."
What's fascinating here is the opening phrase.
Yeah, that's what immediately jumps out to me too, based on the tremendous interest shown.
Right. I mean, the stated motivation for an incredibly complex national security declassification effort is explicitly acknowledged as public demand.
So why is the president curious? because the public is curious.
Exactly. And that phrase completely upends the traditional architecture of national security declassification.
How so? Like, how does it normally work?
Well, historically, intelligence declassification is a very rigid top-down process. It's usually driven by statutory declassification schedules.
Meaning, like, a document hits its 25-year mark or 50-year mark, and then it's automatically reviewed.
Right, exactly. Or it gets forced out by specific, really protracted Freedom of Information Act lawsuits.
Those FOIA requests that take decades sometimes.
Yeah. The intelligence community does not normally release highly classified, complex sensor data simply because a segment of the population is intensely curious about it.
Right. It basically bypasses the traditional gatekeepers entirely.
Exactly. Usually, the director of national intelligence or the head of a specific agency will argue that public curiosity does not and really cannot outweigh the need for operational secrecy.
Right. The whole, we can't tell you for your own good defense.
Yeah. But this executive directive flips that equation. The president is utilizing a populist mechanism here.
He's essentially declaring that the sheer volume of public interest overrides the bureaucratic inertia of the intelligence community.
And the downstream effect of that is just a massive validation of the public's persistence over the years.
Oh,
By codifying tremendous interest as the primary driver, the directive basically sends a message to the public that their decades of FOIA requests, their pressure campaigns on elected officials, all their continuous scrutiny, it actually worked.
It forced a response at the highest level of executive authority.
Right. It shifts the entire dynamic from the government deciding what the public needs to know to the government actually responding to what the public demands to see.
Okay, so let's follow that thread into the specific language used in the directive, because I think this is where the legal and bureaucratic implications get really fascinating.
Yeah, the wording is very deliberate.
Right. So the president directs the release of files related to, and again, this is a quote, alien extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs.
Right.
I really want to look at the mechanics of that phrasing. Because to a casual reader, alien and extraterrestrial life are just synonyms.
Sure.
And UAP is basically just the modern bureaucratic rebrand of the classic pop culture term UFO.
Exactly. It's what they've been calling it for the last few years.
So why the laundry list? I mean, is this just rhetorical emphasis, or is there a functional administrative trap being set by being that redundant?
Oh, it's definitely an administrative trap. The redundancy serves a highly aggressive administrative purpose.
Really? Like how?
Well, if you look at the long history of government transparency, agencies have continually utilized semantic loopholes to avoid releasing sensitive documents.
Just playing word games.
Exactly. If an executive directive simply ordered the release of, say, all UFO files, the records managers at an intelligence agency could legally and truthfully respond, "We have 0 UFO files."
Oh, because they officially retired the term UFO decades ago.
Right, and now they classify all such incidents as UAP, so if you just ask for UFOs, you get nothing.
Wow. So it's basically a semantic dragnet. If you don't list every possible variation, the bureaucracy will just slip through the one loophole you forgot to close.
Exactly. It removes all operational ambiguity for the records managers at the FBI, the Navy, the Air Force, the Department of Energy, all of them.
So whether it's a faded incident report from 1952 that uses the term UFO, or a modern sensor log from 2024 using UAP, both are caught in the net.
Yes. And crucially, the inclusion of alien and extraterrestrial life functions as an ultimate safeguard.
So,
Because if the government possesses files relating to non-human biological entities or, off-world origins, those specific files might not technically fit the strict aerodynamic definition of an aerial phenomenon.
right, because a body isn't a phenomenon in the sky.
Exactly. By casting the widest possible linguistic net, the directive ensures that biological or planetary data cannot be withheld on a technicality.
That is wild. And the directive also concludes by validating the topic itself, right? Calling these matters highly complex, but extremely interesting and important.
Yeah, which is a huge shift in tone.
Right. Because for the better part of a century, the topic of UFOs was treated as a radioactive punchline within government circles.
Oh, absolutely. It was institutionally dismissed.
Right. It was always swamp gas or temperature inversions, weather balloons, or just the delusions of eccentric citizens.
And any pilot who actually reported a sighting risked their entire career. They'd face psychological evaluations, ridicule.
Yeah. But by having the commander-in-chief publicly declare the phenomenon to be highly complex and extremely important, that historical stigma is just stripped away by executive decree.
It really signals to the military and intelligence communities that they are now expected to treat these encounters with rigorous investigative seriousness.
Instead of just burying the reports out of institutional embarrassment.
Right. But, a social media post initiates the action, but it immediately collides with the brutal reality of federal bureaucracy.
Yeah, saying it's one thing, doing it is another.
Exactly. The president's directive instantly spawned a massive logistical operation, which brings us to the actual architecture of the PRSU system itself.
Right, the system executing all of this.
Yeah, and the execution of this directive is overseen by the Department of War, with stated support from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, or ODNI.
And the scale of the operation outlined on the DOW website just defies easy comprehension.
It's mad.
The text literally states that this is an, quote, unprecedented historic undertaking that requires coordination between dozens of agencies and the review of tens of millions of records.
Tens of millions.
Yeah, and it says, quote, many existing only on paper, spanning many decades.
That's the part that really gets me.
Right. I mean, think about it like the ultimate, most terrifying attic cleaning job in history.
That's a great analogy.
Except the attic belongs to the military intelligence apparatus that spans 80 years and involves sifting through millions of physical, fading paper documents.
Good luck with that.
Right. We need to break down the sheer mechanical friction of that sentence. How do you actually execute this?
Well, the text mandates that the DOW, quote, expeditiously find, review, identify, declassify, and publicly release these records.
Okay, but the word expeditiously seems to be in direct physical conflict with the reality of reviewing tens of millions of fading paper records.
Oh, it absolutely is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the friction really lies in the legal requirement of the declassification process itself.
Right, because it's not just scanning a page.
No, not at all. Declassifying a document is not a matter of simply dragging a digital folder onto a public server. Every single page of those tens of millions of records must be meticulously reviewed for sources and methods.
Okay, let's contextualize that for a listener.
Yeah.
What does a sources and methods review actually look like for a historical UAP document?
So imagine a physical piece of paper, like a radar log from a highly classified tracking station in 1985.
Okay, 1985 radar log, got it.
Right, and it captured an anomalous object moving at Mach 15. Now, the public wants the data on the object's speed and trajectory,
Obviously.
but that piece of paper also contains the specific frequency band that the radar was operating on. It contains the exact geographic coordinates of a classified listening post.
Ah, I see.
And perhaps it even details the operational limits of the sensor technology at that specific time.
Right, which the military definitely doesn't want out there.
Exactly, because if you release that document unredacted, you have just provided foreign adversaries with a detailed schematic of U.S. sensor capabilities and blind spots from that era.
Wow. Okay, so how do they fix that?
Well, a specialized declassification officer has to read that specific page, understand the historical context of the technology, determine what must be surgically redacted to protect national security, and then figure out what can be safely released to fulfill the executive mandate.
Man, and you have to multiply that manual cognitive process by tens of millions of pages.
Scattered across the basements and secure vaults of dozens of distinct federal agencies.
Right. We aren't talking about running a sophisticated AI keyword search on a modern cloud server here.
No, the text explicitly notes that many of these records exist only on paper.
We're talking about literal cardboard boxes, degraded microfiche, fading carbon copy typed reports from the early Cold War era. So the logistical chain requires locating the physical box, securely transcoding it, manually scanning and digitizing fragile pages.
Then running optical character recognition software that honestly often fails on 1950s typewriter font.
Right. And only then beginning the human redaction review.
Which logically dictates the specific release strategy the government adopted for PPRSU.
Yeah, they couldn't just drop it all at once.
No, the website explicitly states, quote, given the scope of this task, the Department of War will be releasing new materials on a rolling basis as they are discovered and declassified, with tranches posted every few weeks.
So they are building a pipeline, they process a batch, they release a batch.
Exactly. It prevents the entire system from bottlenecking while waiting for some mythical final completion date that might be a decade away.
And beyond the logistical necessity, the tranche strategy creates a really fascinating dynamic in public communications, I think.
Oh, for sure. Because if the government somehow managed to dump 10 million pages on the website on a single Tuesday, it would be catastrophically overwhelming.
All right, nobody could read that. The media, civilian scientists, open source intelligence communities, they would just drown in the data.
Vital, paradigm-shifting information would just get buried under the sheer noise of mundane logistical reports.
Yeah, but by releasing smaller, curated tranches every few weeks, the government basically dictates a rhythm of discovery.
Right. It gives crowdsourced researchers the necessary time to actually digest, cross-reference, and analyze the newly available data before the next wave hits.
It transforms the declassification process from a static historical archive dump into an ongoing interactive public event.
Exactly.
Okay, so the pipeline is built, the documents are being scanned, and the tranches are rolling out. But this brings us to the absolute crux of our deep dive today.
It's a big question.
Right. What exactly is the fundamental nature of the data being fed into this pipeline? Because the public assumption is that PSU is the vault containing the definitive answers, right?
That's what everyone hopes.
But when you read the parameters the Department of War has established for the system, you hit a massive administrative wall.
You really do.
The text states, quite plainly, quote, "The materials archived here are unresolved cases."
It's unresolved.
So what does this all mean? We really have to pull this apart. The government launches a massive portal based on tremendous public interest, but explicitly states that everything inside it is unresolved.
Well, the DOW provides a very specific definition for that term. The text defines unresolved cases as situations where, quote, "the government is unable to make a definitive determination on the nature of the observed phenomena."
Unable to make a definitive determination.
Right. And it provides the primary reason for that inability. It says, quote, "This can occur for a variety of reasons, including a lack of sufficient data."
A lack of sufficient data. I mean, that single phrase essentially acts as a massive shock absorber for public expectations.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if someone logs into the Pursue 2 portal expecting to find high-definition, multi-angle stabilized FLIR video of a craft landing accompanied by a metallurgical breakdown of its hull and a biological profile of its occupants.
They are going to be very disappointed.
Right. They are fundamentally misunderstanding the nature of the archive.
Because if the government possessed that level of granular corroborating data, the intelligence analysts would have been able to make a definitive determination.
And it would no longer be unresolved.
Exactly. Returning to that core question of whether this material proves these phenomena came from another planet, the text forces a very sobering realization.
Yeah.
The answer provided by the millions of documents in PSU is not a definitive yes.
But it is also not a definitive no.
Right. The official government position, as represented by this massive archive, is a highly documented, voluminous "we don't know."
They're handing over the cold cases. They are releasing the files where the investigative trail simply evaporated.
Yeah, I mean, these files will undoubtedly feature incredible anomalies.
Oh, for sure. They will document radar tracks that completely defy known physics, but then suddenly drop off the screen.
Or they'll contain blurry, degraded optical imagery taken by pilots operating under extreme physical stress.
Right, or feature infrared signatures that just don't match any known exhaust plume.
But, crucially, they lack the secondary or tertiary censored data required to elevate an anomaly into a scientific conclusion.
Like the second radar system was offline, or the object accelerated out of the engagement zone before a hard lock could be acquired.
Right, exactly. But, this focus on unresolved cases creates an immediate structural paradox within the PSU initiative.
Right.
And the text actually acknowledges this paradox with a caveat that requires deep, deep scrutiny.
Oh, I know the line you're talking about.
Yeah. The website states, quote, "DOW will continue to conduct separate reporting on resolved UAP cases as mandated by statute."
Wait, let's follow the logic of that caveat because the implications of that are staggering.
They really are.
If PSU is the designated clearinghouse for all the unresolved files, where are the resolved files going?
Exact.
Think about the criteria for a resolved case. Let's look at scenario A. A commercial pilot reports a glowing metallic orb ascending rapidly. Military intelligence cross-references the coordinates, reviews satellite telemetry, and definitively identifies the object as a classified foreign surveillance balloon operating in U.S. airspace.
So the mystery is solved.
Right, the case is resolved. So that report does not go into PSU. It just vanishes into standard, highly classified intelligence channels dealing with counterespionage and foreign adversarial assets.
Which makes sense. That is the standard mechanism for defending national airspace.
Right.
But the architecture of that caveat works in both directions.
Exactly. Wait, no, let's explore that second direction.
Yeah.
Because scenario B is where it gets crazy.
Let's hear it.
What if a case is resolved, but not as a weather balloon or a foreign drone? What if multiple military assets capture redundant sensor data, radar, infrared, optical, perhaps even physical material is recovered?
Okay, hypothetically.
Right, hypothetically. The data is so overwhelming and complete that the intelligence apparatus makes a definitive, undeniable determination that the object is of non-human, off-world origin.
Well, under the strict definitions laid out on the PRSU website, that case is definitively resolved.
Right. Based purely on the administrative parameters of the text, a confirmed extraterrestrial craft is a resolved case.
It is a known quantity.
So therefore, it would be subject to separate reporting.
Yeah.
As mandated by statute, right?
Yeah.
Existing entirely outside the public-facing PRSU system.
It is the ultimate sleight of hand.
I mean, the government is opening the vault to tens of millions of files, providing unprecedented transparency, but structurally excluding any file where the mystery was actually solved.
They are basically giving the public the raw data of their failures while legally reserving the right to sequester their successes.
Wow. It reveals PRSU not as a repository of ultimate truths, but really as a monument to the limitations of the military intelligence apparatus.
Exactly. It is a massive archive of the government's blind spots.
Which perfectly transitions into the next radical shift outlined in the text,
Right.
because the government acknowledges that it cannot solve these cases internally due to this lack of sufficient data. They are basically abandoning the traditional closed-door intelligence model.
Yeah, they are turning outward.
Right. The text states, quote, "The Department of War welcomes the application of private sector analysis, information, and expertise."
And that invitation to the private sector represents the true democratization of intelligence analysis.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
Because for nearly 80 years, the government's stance on the UAP phenomenon was intensely paternalistic.
Like, we know best.
Exactly. The underlying message was always, we have the multi-billion-dollar sensor networks, we have the highest security clearances, we are the experts. If we conclude an event was a temperature inversion, the public must accept that conclusion.
Right. But this text fundamentally dismantles that dynamic.
It is a formal admission of institutional limitation.
Yeah, the Department of War is recognizing that the sheer volume of anomalous data, combined with the unconventional nature of the phenomena, simply outstrips the processing power and perhaps the creative methodologies of traditional military analysts.
They are essentially taking thousands of boxes of unsolved cold case files, dumping them in the public square, handing out magnifying glasses, and asking the civilian world to take a crack at them.
Which is an amazing visual.
Yeah.
But how does that actually function in practice? I mean, the government isn't just asking for random opinions on a message board.
Yeah, no.
They are hoping to leverage the rapidly evolving world of open source intelligence, or OSINT.
Right. Civilian organizations, university astrophysics departments, independent data scientists.
Yeah, and decentralized networks of researchers.
Right.
Because they often innovate and iterate much faster than defense contractors bound by slow bureaucratic procurement cycles.
Exactly. The government is basically betting that a decentralized network of civilian analysts might develop a novel machine learning algorithm to, say, clean up artifacts in a 1990s infrared video faster than a siloed intelligence unit could.
They are outsourcing the analytical heavy lifting to the global hive mind.
Yes. But the text goes even further than just asking for technical help. There is a profound ideological shift happening here, too.
Oh, yeah. And to understand it, we really have to examine the statement included with Release Or 1, provided by the United States Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
That statement is fascinating.
Here's where it gets really interesting. His statement reads, quote, "The Department of War is in lockstep with President Trump to bring unprecedented transparency regarding our government's understanding of unidentified anomalous phenomena."
Okay.
And then he says, quote, "These files, hidden behind classifications, have long fueled justified speculation, and it's time the American people see it for themselves."
That phrase right there.
Right. I want to aggressively challenge the phrasing there, specifically those words, justified speculation.
It's a bold choice of words.
Is the sitting Secretary of War actually validating the decades of conspiracy theories surrounding the government and UFOs?
Wow.
Because there is a massive institutional danger in a federal official essentially telling the public, you were right not to trust us.
Sure.
It retroactively validates the exact kind of anti-institutional paranoia that modern governments usually spend all their capital fighting against. Isn't that an incredibly reckless messaging strategy?
It is a calculated risk, definitely. But I think it represents a highly sophisticated pivot in crisis communication.
Okay, how do you mean?
Well, the secretary is not necessarily validating the content of the speculation. He isn't saying the theories about subterranean bases or recovered alien bodies are actually true.
Right.
He is validating the cause of the speculation.
Yeah.
He's establishing a direct chain of causality, basically saying, we hid these files behind a wall of classifications because we created an information vacuum. You speculated about what was in the vacuum.
Right.
Therefore, your speculation was a rational, justified response to our institutional secrecy.
Wow. Okay, so it is an admission that the government's historical habit of obfuscation, denial, and ridicule was actively harmful to public trust.
Exactly.
They practically forced the public to invent elaborate theories because they steadfastly refused to provide the raw data.
Yes. And by releasing the files through pura sue, the administration is attempting to repair that specific breach of trust.
By just giving them the data.
Right. The strategy is to replace the information vacuum with a flood of raw, unvarnished data.
Even if the data is incomplete.
Even if it's heavily redacted, and even if every single case is marked unresolved.
Yeah.
The mere act of showing the work is intended to reset the relationship with the public. It is a transition from a brittle model of trust us, there's nothing to see, to a much more resilient model of don't trust us, look at the incomplete files yourself and see our limitations.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. So, having explored the immense bureaucratic machinery, the paradox of the unresolved files, and the strategic admission of past failures, we finally arrive at the data itself.
The actual files.
Right. What does a tranche actually look like?
Well, the PRSUE portal initiated its mission with Release 01, which was cleared for public viewing on May 8, 2026.
And this first tranche sets the precedent for how the government intends to format and present this information to the open source community.
Right. And the architecture of the release interface is surprisingly Spartan.
Very bare bones.
Yeah. The public is presented with a table containing 161 files.
161.
Right. The columns indicate the file name, the originating agency, the release date, the incident location, and the file type, which are all digitized PDFs.
But the very first column provides a massive shock to the system.
It really does.
Because when the general public thinks of unidentified aerial phenomena, the imagery is almost exclusively military.
Right. Navy pilots, Air Force jets.
We picture Navy fighter pilots in F-18s tracking tic-tac-shaped objects off the coast of California. Or we picture Air Force radar operators in deeply classified bunkers tracking impossible speeds.
That's the pop culture image, yeah.
Yet, in this inaugural release from the Department of War's massive new portal, neither the Navy nor the Air Force is represented.
Not a single file.
Every single one of the 161 files in Release 01 originates from the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Which is wild.
Right. Why is the FBI the tip of the spear for the PRSU system? This raises an important question. What does the heavy involvement of a domestic law enforcement agency imply about the fundamental nature of the UAP phenomenon?
Well, it drastically reconfigures our understanding of the phenomenon's operational theater.
How so?
It blurs the strict jurisdictional lines between national defense and domestic law enforcement. I mean, think about it. The U.S. military is generally mandated to operate outside the borders of the United States, right?
Right, in foreign theaters or highly restricted offshore warning areas.
Exactly. The FBI, conversely, is the premier federal investigative agency operating on domestic soil, interacting daily with civilian infrastructure.
Okay, so if the government is opening its archive with 161 FBI investigations, it implies that UAPs are not just an isolated military problem happening hundreds of miles out at sea.
Exactly. It suggests a deep history of incidents occurring domestically.
Like interacting with civilian populations, civilian aviation, and domestic airspace.
Right, requiring the deployment of actual federal agents to investigate.
Let's visualize the operational reality of that. Imagine a local law enforcement officer in rural New Mexico in the late 1950s responding to a call of a metallic craft hovering low over a state highway.
Okay, typical UFO scenario.
Right. The local police department has no protocol for this, so they secure the scene and contact the nearest FBI field office.
And then the FBI dispatches agents.
Right. Those agents interview terrified civilian witnesses. They tape off the area. They might collect soil samples from where the craft allegedly hovered, looking for radiation or chemical propellant traces.
Doing actual police work.
Exactly. And then they type up a comprehensive field report detailing the anomalies.
And that field report is then forwarded to FBI headquarters, stamped with a security classification, cross-referenced with military intelligence, and just filed away in a secure vault.
Where it sits in the dark for 70 years.
Right. Until the PRSUE mandate forces a records manager to dig it out, digitize it, run a redaction review, and upload it as a PDF.
So the heavy presence of the FBI really indicates that these phenomena were historically perceived not just as abstract aerospace anomalies, but as tangible, on-the-ground incidents requiring federal crime scene methodologies.
It weaves the UAP mystery directly into the fabric of everyday American life.
It totally does.
Yeah.
But as you dig deeper into the interface of Release 01, another detail emerges that immediately throws a wrench into the whole crowdsourcing effort we talked about.
Oh yeah, this is the frustrating part.
Beside the originating agency and the release date, the portal features columns for incident date and incident location.
Right.
But for every single one of the 161 FBI files listed in this initial excerpt, those columns contain two letters, N/A.
Not applicable or not available.
Right, NA. The friction here for a civilian data scientist is just enormous.
It's basically a roadblock.
The DOW is asking the private sector for help finding patterns and anomalies. But how do you build a spatial or temporal database if the primary geographic and chronological markers are completely stripped out?
You can't.
Why would the government withhold the basic when and where of an incident that happened decades ago?
Well, the application of NA stems directly from the intense redaction processes we discussed earlier, and there are really two primary drivers for this.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is the administrative reality of historical filing systems.
What do you mean?
Well, a single FBI PDF might not be a standalone report of a single sighting. It might be a quarterly summary memo compiling dozens of disparate civilian reports across multiple states over a 3-month period.
Oh, I see.
So in a rigid database structure requiring a single incident date and location, the records manager has no choice but to input NA because the file encompasses multiple sprawling data points.
Okay, so that accounts for the bureaucratic limitations. But what about the security limitations? Because I imagine those are way more strict.
The security limitations are far more restrictive, yes. The declassification officers must protect sources and methods, which includes the location of classified domestic facilities.
Right, of course.
Suppose an FBI agent filed a report regarding a UAP hovering over a specific, highly classified Department of Energy research site in 1982.
Okay.
The declassification review might determine that the narrative of the UAP encounter can be released to satisfy the peer issue mandate.
Right, because the president ordered it.
Exactly. However, the exact location of that unacknowledged DOE site must remain redacted to protect current national security infrastructure.
So the PDF is released with the geographic coordinates completely blacked out.
Right, and the database location field is marked NAA. The public receives the story of the encounter, but is denied the geographic context that might actually explain why the object was there.
Man, this places an immense burden on the open source intelligence community. They aren't just reading files, they are basically being asked to forensically reconstruct shattered data.
They really are. To overcome the NA metadata, a civilian researcher has to download the degraded PDF, run advanced optical character recognition, and comb through the surviving unredacted text looking for contextual clues.
Like if the location is blacked out, but the report mentions the UAP was spotted near a specific mountain range.
Right. Or if the responding local police officer's name is left unredacted. The OSINT community must then cross-reference historical census data, old municipal police rosters, and geographic topography just to reverse engineer the missing coordinates.
It transforms the Pursuit portal from a simple reading room into this massive, interactive, highly complex puzzle.
It really tests the limits of the tremendous interest cited by the president.
Yeah. Will the public remain engaged when faced with the grueling, unglamorous reality of analyzing millions of pages of incomplete, heavily redacted, unresolved data?
That is the ultimate trial of the system.
Well, we have covered a massive expanse of institutional territory today.
We really have.
We started by examining the sheer shock of finding a UFO portal embedded within the Department of War's digital infrastructure.
Right.
We traced the origin of this massive undertaking back to a presidential directive that utilized populist demand to completely bypass the traditional closed-loop intelligence community.
And we deconstructed the staggering mechanical reality of the pure ACSU system, analyzing the immense friction of manually declassifying tens of millions of historical paper records.
And the strategic utility of releasing that data in a steady rhythm of tranches.
Right. We also dissected the paradox at the heart of the system, the fact that the public is being handed purely unresolved data.
Yeah. We explored how the government is simultaneously acknowledging its own analytical limitations by requesting private sector crowdsourcing.
while the Secretary of War strategically leverages past secrecy by validating the public's justified speculation.
Finally, we analyze the reality of Release 01, uncovering the profound domestic implications of the FBI's involvement and the severe analytical challenges posed by stripped metadata and NA designations.
It's a lot to process.
It is. The PRSU system is a monumental achievement in public transparency, revealing decades of operational history. But as we conclude this deep dive, I want you, the listener, to consider a lingering, foundational question derived entirely from the parameters the government itself established in the text.
The big one.
The Department of War is throwing open the doors to the archive. They are building the infrastructure, dedicating the personnel, and inviting you, the public, to download these 161 newly declassified FBI files and hunt for the truth.
But remember the strict boundaries they set.
Right. Everything on the PRSU website represents a case where the investigative trail went cold. It is an archive of insufficient data.
Because the text explicitly states that the Department of War continues to conduct separate reporting on the resolved cases.
Exactly. As you sift through these faded PDFs, reading about impossible flight characteristics, broken radar tracks, and redacted geographic coordinates, aren't you forced to wonder what the government is keeping in the resolved folder?
You have to wonder.
If the military intelligence apparatus, with its multi-billion-dollar sensor networks, ever actually collected enough redundant, undeniable data to definitively prove that a craft originated from another planet, that case would no longer be unresolved.
It would be a known quantity.
And by the government's own rules, it would not be hosted on the PRSU portal.
No, it wouldn't.
So if the definitive proof of extraterrestrial life isn't in the tens of millions of files hitting the public website, where is it?
That's the real question.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the PRSU system. Stay curious, keep analyzing the data, and we will see you on the next deep dive.